I'm juggling feeders this morning because our bucks have knocked their feeder over a few times and the foot's come loose. We've got 2 feeders for the girls, 1 for the boys, so the girls can get by with 1 while I fix this one for the boys. I've used this stuff before, JB Weld. It's a 2-part epoxy bonding agent, and I think it's got some like steel, some actual steel fibers in there or something to help really bond it to metal pretty well. Anyway, I've used this stuff before. It takes a few hours to set, but it takes a couple days to cure. I want this to be safe for a couple of days before I put it back in with the bucks. So I'm doing it out here. I just read the directions a little closer. It turns out the cure time is 24 hours, not 48 hours. So I'll be able to put the feeder back in with our goats tomorrow. There is a strange coincidence with our feeder happening to need work done on its feet at this time. What I want to talk about in this video is humility as a daily practice. Chickens. Hello, chickens. Hopefully they won't make too much noise for us. I had been thinking about the biblical story where Jesus washed his disciples' feet, and he strongly emphasized how important it was to follow his example. If you want to refresh your memory, it's in John 13. I'm not going to read the whole thing here or flash up a text wall. Anyway, it occurred to me that because Jesus made such a big deal about it, and remember, this was at the Last Supper, right at the point where he was summing up his whole ministry here on earth. Maybe foot washing was meant to be as important as communion or baptism. The sad and ironic truth is that I felt clever and insightful for seeing it this way. Pastor Steve, the pastor at our church, just this last Sunday, had a sermon on loving like Jesus, and he used that story, the foot washing story, as an example of how to love, specifically with humility. The pastor emphasized that humbly serving others is an action that you do. Humility should be a daily practice for us. We serve a foot washing king, but that doesn't mean that foot washing is an ordinance of the church. Thinking about it further, it occurred to me that there really is a very big difference between humbly serving others and participating in something like communion. Communion calls for us to really focus and experience a sacred space and time. It demands reverence. Being a humble servant calls for us to be so in an ordinary, this is just what I do, it's just my job kind of way. For me to have felt proud and insightful about servanthood and humility was just about as dumb a thing as I could probably do. On the one hand, humility is all about how you see yourself and how you see others. It's an attitude, a way of thinking. Here's a small example. Do you get upset when you're driving in traffic and somebody's going faster than you are, going around you, and getting ahead of you? Road rage is prideful. It is not letting somebody else be more important than you are. We can think about and decide to be more humble. But the more I think about it, the more I think thinking is less effective than just doing. Wishing harder and believing more that it would be nice if we were the ones who slowed down and let others get ahead, instead of just reflexively reacting with indignation about how that guy is unfairly taking our spot, is less effective than just driving with compassion and deference. We can let good feelings fill us as a natural result of having done a small act of service. We can develop the daily habit of humility by practicing small acts of service on a daily basis. Science would call this neuroplasticity. With God's help, we can all develop a stronger, more resilient character. To tie this back in with our homestead lifestyle here, I'd like to think that farmers, homesteaders, or anyone who raises any kind of livestock are kind of lucky. We've got a built-in daily routine of chores that are not glamorous. Pulling weeds, shoveling poop, hauling water around for the animals. Doing these humble things can help pull us out of our maybe our natural tendency to say, look at how great I am kind of thinking. They are acts of service for the land and the animals, acts that are just ordinary. They're just a, this is a job I need to do kind of task. This kind of work also depends on things like the weather or economic cycles that are so far out of our control that we really can't take credit for things that go well, and we really can't depend on our own strengths to make things happen. Now, being on YouTube is another story. YouTubers as a group may need to guard a little more carefully against prideful tendencies. But nobody gets it right all the time, and we can all find ways to have humility in our lives as a daily practice. Humility in the face of circumstances beyond our control is just a small taste of the kind of humility that we should maintain when we appreciate just how much greater God is than we are. This kind of humility is a treasure in and of itself. It lets our prayers be honest and direct, and it helps us hear the guidance that can come from the Lord when we need it. Just remember that the Lord is all-knowing and all-powerful, and His love is equally strong and everlasting. The truth that God wants to listen to us and wants us to hear Him makes a whole nother point. Feeling unworthy is healthy. Feeling worthless is a lie. We are significant and have a part to play in His plan. There is another simple truth, and I'm maybe not versed well enough in the Bible to pick out a verse that would really demonstrate this, but it seems to me that practicing humility naturally leads to a more genuine happiness. It may be a little counterintuitive when we are prideful and we want to think we're so great that, you know, maybe that's the way to be happy, but it leads away from true happiness. Just being humble and obedient to God has a way of bringing us the joy and peace that He wants for us. There's a lot of verses in the Bible that speak about humility. I'll leave you with one. It's from Luke. Let me find it here. Luke 14:11. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. Thanks for watching. Remember, your dreams are closer than the moon. Thanks for taking this trip around the moon with us.